Welcome. My name is Peter Wood. I am the president of the National Association of Scholars, and I'm very pleased that you are joining us for the release of our new report, Sustainability, Higher Education's New Fundamentalism. Our program today consists of a keynote by Arthur Brooks, the president of the American Enterprise Institute, some remarks by Herb London, who is the president of the London Center for Policy Research and chairman of the board of the National Association of Scholars, and some remarks by Neil Ross, the U.S. program director of Spiked magazine. We will then hear from Rochelle Peterson, who is the main author of the report, and I will make some concluding comments as the co-author of the report. Please reserve your questions to the end. We have a good amount of time for a question and answer period, and we will distribute printed copies of the report at that point. Before I introduce Mr. Brooks, let me provide a little context for this report. My colleagues and I have been examining the campus sustainability movement since 2008, with our discovery at the University of Delaware that it had put into place a dorm-based program that attempted to force students to avow their support for various progressive social causes. The University of Delaware promptly ended that program when we and the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education spotlighted it, but the episode had a curious loose end. We were puzzled that the university administration had culled its venture into promoting its views of racial justice, gay marriage, and sexual liberty, a sustainability program. Little, if anything, about it concerned environmental issues. My colleague, NAS Executive Director Ashley Thorne, and I began to pull on that thread and very quickly found ourselves with at least 3 bags of wool. We learned, for example, that the sustainability movement defined sustainability as the conjunction of 3 doctrines involving the environment, the economy, and a version of social justice. Referred to as the triple bottom line, or pictured as a Venn diagram of 3 interlocking circles, sustainability's core idea was, and is, the inseparability of these 3 components. It's a little too simple to say that the whole movement amounted to save the earth by eliminating capitalism and adopting progressive social values, but that indeed summarizes the message of a major part of the movement, exemplified by best-selling author Naomi Klein's recent book, This Changes Everything, Capitalism versus the Climate. Not all strands of sustainability view capitalism per se as the enemy. Some sustainability advocates, for instance, favor a cap-and-trade market in carbon credits. Others, including the present administration, have favored large government subsidies for private companies in the green energy sector. Even students calling on their college boards of trustees to divest from carbon energy companies are expressing a certain kind of confidence in the effectiveness of markets. And I will leave it to Mr. Brooks to untangle these strands of wool. In mentioning Ms. Klein's books, I cited her subtitle, Capitalism versus the Climate. To what extent is the sustainability movement on campus an extension of the debate over global warming or climate change? There is, to be sure, a vibrant connection. Today, nearly all the supporters of the sustainability movement also believe strongly in the dangers of anthropogenic global warming. Our report, however, is not about climate change, its magnitude, direction, causes, or remedies. Rather, we attempt what some will see as a magic trick of sawing the lady in half. We seek to document, describe, and analyze the sustainability movement while putting aside the question of global warming. We do this because we want to bring the sustainability movement into clear focus as an ideology in its own right. We also do it because the NAS truly doesn't have a stand on anthropogenic global warming hypothesis, other than to say that colleges and universities have a genuine obligation to support intellectual freedom. And that's the freedom of climate skeptics as well as supporters of the climate consensus. We know that declaration of open-mindedness on our part is now itself controversial, but that, as we see it, is part of the problem. The sustainability movement has reached the point where it puts up barriers to free inquiry and free expression, and in that way, it has become a major source of harm to American higher education. I've cited the sustainability movement's triple bottom line, its efforts to combine environmental, economic, and social justice themes into a whole. But what exactly is sustainability? The most widely cited definition comes from a 1987 United Nations report, Our Common Future, commonly called the Brundtland Commission report. The report centered on the proposition that all nations of the world should seek a sustainable development path, and it defined sustainable development as development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. The meeting that's taking place right now at the United Nations is a follow-on to that. The term sustainable development is still widely used in other countries, but in the US it is usually shortened to sustainability. The word is shortened, but not the idea. The Brundtland Commission made clear that sustainability is a big idea. It encompasses environmental concerns, but also demography, the distribution of wealth, property rights, agriculture, mining, industry, trade, science, water rights, wildlife, social structure, local zoning, national policy, and international treaties. In principle, all of these are subordinated to the effort not to compromise the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. In practice, it means something else. The needs of future generations are only knowable to a limited extent, and the effort not to compromise the ability of future generations to meet those needs is inevitably a large-scale speculation. In the 18th century, no one could foresee the need of future generations for large-scale coal production, or the later need for large-scale petroleum production. And no one in the 19th century saw the needs in the 20th century for nuclear energy, millions of miles of paved roads, or materials such as plastics. Several of the 17 rare earth elements are now indispensable. Only one of them, yttrium, was known before 1800, but there was virtually no use for any of them before the mid-1960s when color TV created a demand for the element europium. Figuring out what resources future generations will actually need is in some respects impossible. But we can and should assume that the future generations will welcome good stewardship of the world's resources, especially air and water, the conditions for healthy agriculture, and the preservation of the wild. The sustainability movement should be welcomed for raising good questions about the best balance between conservation and development. But today, the movement has transitioned into something else. Rather than a goad to good questions, it has become more and more a straitjacket of doctrinaire answers coupled to apocalyptic prophecy. We titled our report, Sustainability, Higher Education's New Fundamentalism, to draw attention to the movement's radical narrowing of intellectual perspective, its intolerance of dissent, and its insistence that the time for inquiry has passed and that the time for action is upon us. This haste for action, for sure, is a familiar and recurrent theme in troubled times. Wordsworth, reflecting on his youthful infatuation with the French Revolution, wrote, "Bliss was it in that dawn to be alive, but to be young was very heaven." Revolutionary ardor has as many delights today as it ever did. Fortunately, the sustainability movement has not yet given us a Robespierre, even if it has spawned thousands of fantasies among young people of a new Eden following the eco-apocalypse that awaits just around the next melting glacier. But the haste to action and the fantasies of the young are not really the central problem with the campus sustainability movement. For us, far more worrisome is the embrace by the movement of the movement by college administrators and faculty members. Those entrusted with the responsibility to keep American higher education focused on the essentials have stumbled badly over their over-enthusiastic embrace of the movement, and that is what our report is about.